Jack never expected his life to change on a routine mission in deep space. He was just another ordinary human, a technician, who joined the crew of the starship Arctic Dawn for what was supposed to be a simple exploration mission. The objective was clear: survey a newly discovered star system for resources and potential signs of alien life. The job was not glamorous, and Jack was okay with that. After all, he never considered himself special. His life back on Earth had been nothing remarkable, and he expected this mission to be the same, just another job in his dull career. However, as the Arctic Dawn approached the uncharted system, things began to feel different. The stars here were unnervingly close, their light almost pulsating with some strange energy. The crew, usually excited about any new discovery, felt a sense of unease that couldn't be explained. Yet Jack shrugged off his own worries, focusing on his work and routines. He wasn't one to entertain fears or superstitions. Space exploration was filled with the unknown, and that was something Jack had learned to accept. The team touched down on the planet's surface, a cold, barren world far from any other life forms. The first scans showed no sign of intelligent beings, only vast stretches of rocky plains, broken by the occasional, strange structure buried deep in the planet's crust. The planet, codenamed Veridian, had been overlooked for decades due to its apparent lack of interest to previous surveyors. But the energy signatures now emanating from the planet's core could not be ignored. That's why Arctic Dawn had been sent here, to uncover what lay beneath the surface. Little did Jack know, this seemingly lifeless planet held secrets that would change everything he knew about the universe. The crew set up base on the outskirts of a massive cavern, where seismic activity was the most intense. They began scanning the area for any signs of life or technology. Jack, assigned to assist in the technical equipment and maintenance of their survey systems, kept his head down and focused on his tasks. It was hard not to feel that something was watching them as they went deeper into the cave system, the strange hum of the planet's core vibrating beneath their boots. Jack decided to take a small break from the hustle of the team. The vast expanse of the cavern was mesmerizing, and for a moment he just stood in awe of the unknown landscape. The air was thick and strangely still, almost as if the planet was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The crew's voices were muffled by the rocky walls, and as Jack ventured further, the sounds of his own footsteps echoed off the cavernous ceilings. It wasn't long before Jack found something that would shake his understanding of reality. Hidden behind a large rock formation, half covered by layers of ancient dirt and debris, was a doorway, a massive archway that led deep into the planet. The door itself was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It wasn't made of any metal or material he could recognize. Instead, it shimmered with an otherworldly energy that pulsed with an eerie blue light. His heart raced as he approached, knowing that he was not supposed to be out there alone, but something in the back of his mind told him this was important. This was what they had come here for. Stepping forward, Jack placed his hand on the cool surface of the arch. The moment his skin made contact, the door flared to life. The blue light intensified, and before Jack could react, the entire structure shifted, sliding open with a mechanical hum, revealing what lay beyond. Inside, Jack found an enormous chamber, one that felt both alien and ancient. The walls were lined with advanced machinery, though much of it was now covered in dust and cobwebs. Strange symbols and markings decorated the surfaces, and in the center of the room stood a figure, a throne, as if waiting for someone to sit upon it. But it wasn't just any throne. It seemed to be made of living material, constantly shifting and pulsing with energy. It was both beautiful and intimidating, as though it was a seat of unimaginable power. And then Jack saw her, sitting upon the throne, a towering alien queen. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her eyes glowed with an intense, unearthly light. She looked as though she had been waiting for centuries, her presence both regal and terrifying. Jack froze, his body instinctively taking a step back. His mind raced as he tried to process what he was seeing. The alien queen was enormous, easily towering over him, her form draped in intricate, flowing robes that seemed to be made of starlight itself. Her hair, long and ethereal, moved as if alive, shifting in the air around her. She didn't speak, at least not with her mouth, but Jack heard her in his mind. "You have arrived," the voice echoed inside his head, calm and powerful. Jack felt as though the entire room was vibrating with her words. You are the one I have been waiting for." The words confused Jack even more. He had no idea who this being was or why she was addressing him, but somehow he felt an undeniable connection. Something in her voice called to him, a sense of recognition that made his heart race and his breath catch in his throat. But what truly shocked him came next. Without any warning, the alien queen slowly stood from her throne and kneeled in front of him. The gesture was so unexpected that Jack's knees almost gave way. He stumbled back slightly, overwhelmed by the sheer power of the moment. The queen's immense size seemed to fill the entire room, her presence radiating an ancient and mystical energy. "Why are you kneeling?" Jack blurted out, though his voice came out as more of a breathless whisper. He had no idea why he asked such a question. It just slipped out in a moment of pure confusion. The alien queen tilted her head, her glowing eyes softening as she met his gaze. "Because," she said, her voice now carrying a strange mix of awe and reverence, "you are the heir. The one destined to save us." Jack could only stare, unable to comprehend the weight of her words. His mind raced. He was just a regular guy. Why would this powerful being kneel to him? He had no royal bloodline, no special abilities, nothing that could explain this extraordinary moment. The only thing he could feel was an overwhelming sense of destiny, a pull deep within his soul that he couldn't explain. Before Jack could respond, the queen spoke again, her voice now tinged with a deep sadness. "I have waited for centuries for your arrival. The fate of my people rests in your hands." Jack's head spun, the weight of her words pressing down on him like an anchor. He didn't know what this meant, or why it was happening, but deep down, something told him that his life was never going to be the same again. The queen's eyes glowed brighter, as if revealing something hidden beneath her regal exterior. "You must understand," she continued, "your coming here is not a coincidence. It is written in the stars. You are the last hope of my species." Jack's heart pounded as his world shifted. What had he walked into? And why had this alien queen knelt to him, someone who had nothing special about him? For the first time in his life, Jack felt the weight of something much bigger than himself. The story of his life had just taken a turn that would change the fate of the universe. Jack stood frozen, staring at the alien queen in front of him. The room around him seemed to close in, its vast, ancient walls heavy with a history that he could never fully understand. He had come to this planet expecting to find nothing more than rocks and dust. Yet here he was, face to face with a being whose very presence seemed to change everything. The queen's glowing eyes, her regal posture, the way she knelt before him, it all felt like something out of a dream. But this was no dream, this was real. "Why me?" Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper, his heart pounding in his chest. "I'm just a technician. I don't know anything about ruling or saving anyone." The alien queen rose slowly from her kneeling position, her movements graceful and deliberate. For a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a kind of knowing. She seemed to be weighing her words carefully before she spoke again, as if what she was about to say carried the weight of an entire civilization's fate. "You are the heir," she said softly, the words carrying an ancient, almost reverent quality. "Not by blood alone, but by the stars themselves. You are a descendant of those who once ruled my people, a forgotten bloodline, a hybrid of human and alien, one destined to bring balance to a broken world." Jack's mind spun with confusion. A hybrid, his bloodline tied to aliens. The idea felt absurd. He was a regular person. He grew up in a small town, went to college, got a job. There was nothing special about him, no history of royalty or grand destiny. Yet here he was, standing before a queen who claimed he was her people's last hope. "How is that possible?" Jack asked, still struggling to process what he was hearing. I don't know what you mean." The queen stepped closer, her presence overwhelming in a way that made Jack feel both insignificant and incredibly important at the same time. She raised her hand, and Jack felt a sudden warmth spread through his chest, as if something deep inside him had been awakened. It was as though a door had opened, letting in a flood of memories and emotions he couldn't fully understand. "You were born with this power, though you do not know it yet," she continued, her voice calm and steady. "The connection between our species was severed long ago, but your ancestors, the ones who first came to Earth, were bound to us. You carry the blood of both our people, a bloodline that has been hidden from the universe until now. The time has come for you to reclaim your place, to lead us out of the darkness that has consumed us." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that his bloodline was connected to an alien race was almost too much to bear. He had always thought of himself as just a regular person, but now it seemed as though his very existence was part of something far bigger, something cosmic and profound. "But I don't even know what to do," Jack said, his voice tinged with fear. "I'm not a leader, I'm not even trained for anything like this. I don't know how to save anyone." The Queen's gaze softened, and she stepped even closer, her presence now so powerful that Jack could feel the weight of her words in the very air around him. "You don't have to know everything right now," she said. "You were chosen because you possess something rare, a unique strength that your ancestors carried with them, a strength that has been waiting for this moment." As she spoke, Jack felt a surge of energy pulse through him, as if the very atmosphere of the room was changing, responding to her words. The ground beneath his feet hummed with power, and Jack realized that this was no ordinary encounter. This was the beginning of something extraordinary, something that could change the entire course of history. The Queen's eyes glowed brighter, and Jack instinctively reached out toward her, drawn by an invisible force. "You are not alone in this, Jack," she said. "You have me. You have our people, even if they are scattered and broken. Together, we can restore what was lost. Together, we can rebuild." Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest as the Queen's words washed over him. For the first time, he felt as though he was part of something bigger than himself. The fear and confusion that had gripped him moments ago began to melt away, replaced by a sense of purpose that was both terrifying and exhilarating. But even as the Queen spoke of hope and rebirth, Jack couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was wrong. There was more to this story than she was letting on. He could feel it in the air, a tension that seemed to hang just beyond the reach of his understanding. And as much as he wanted to believe in the Queen's vision, Jack couldn't ignore the doubts that crept into his mind. "You mentioned the balance," Jack said cautiously, trying to make sense of what she was telling him. "What do you mean by that? What happened to your people?" The Queen's expression darkened, her eyes clouding with something close to sorrow. "Long ago, we were a mighty civilization," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of ancient memories. "We ruled over galaxies, our empire stretching across countless worlds. But power, as it always does, corrupted us. We became divided, torn apart by greed and ambition. We fought wars, betrayed one another, and in the end, we destroyed ourselves. Only a handful of us survived, and we have been in hiding ever since." Jack could see the pain in her eyes, the deep sorrow that spoke of a history marred by tragedy. He wanted to ask more. How had her people survived? What exactly had happened to them? But before he could speak, the Queen held up her hand. "It doesn't matter now," she said softly. "What matters is that we have a chance to rebuild. You are the key to that future. But there are those who would see you fail, those who do not believe in your bloodline, in the prophecy that foretold your arrival." Jack's stomach tightened at her words. He had no idea what she meant by prophecy, or who these people were who sought to stop him, but he could feel the weight of her words, the sense of urgency behind them. He knew that his journey had only just begun, and the challenges ahead would be greater than anything he had ever faced. "The time has come for us to face those who would destroy us," the Queen continued. "We must unite, find the remnants of my people, and restore our civilization before it's too late." Jack nodded slowly, still unsure of how all of this would play out. The Queen spoke with such conviction, such confidence, that he couldn't help but believe her. But even as the weight of her words settled in his mind, Jack knew that there was still so much he didn't understand. The path ahead was uncertain, and the stakes were higher than he could imagine. "You'll need to learn more about your powers," the Queen said, her voice gentle but firm. "And you'll need to trust in yourself, Jack, trust in the bloodline that runs through you. You are not just a technician, a simple man. You are the heir to a great legacy, and the future of my people rests with you." Jack felt a strange sense of responsibility settle over him. It was terrifying, overwhelming, but he knew there was no turning back. His life had already been changed, and whatever came next, he would face it head-on. As the Queen turned to walk toward the center of the room, Jack followed her, his mind racing with the weight of everything she had revealed. His life would never be the same again. He was no longer just a technician on a space mission. He was the heir to an alien bloodline, a leader of a forgotten people, and the only one who could bring balance to a broken world. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but Jack knew one thing for certain. He was ready to face whatever came next. The future of two civilizations rested in his hands, and he would not let it slip away. Jack had never felt so out of place. One moment, he was a regular guy, doing a job on a space mission. The next, he was standing before a powerful alien queen, told that he was the heir to an ancient bloodline, destined to restore a broken civilization. The weight of it all felt overwhelming, but Jack knew he couldn't ignore the reality that was unfolding around him. It wasn't just about him anymore. There were lives at stake, civilizations even. The days that followed were filled with intense training and deep discussions with the Queen. She guided him through the ancient knowledge of her people, teaching him about their history, their technology, and the dormant powers within him. Jack could feel it, something was changing inside him. He could sense new abilities awakening, but they were wild, untamed. He could manipulate small objects with his mind, and sometimes he would have flashes of visions, images of distant worlds, forgotten battles, and strange alien creatures. But each time he tried to control it, the power would slip through his fingers like water flowing through cracks in his hands. Zelora the Queen was patient, but there was an urgency in her eyes. She knew time was running out. The faction that opposed her, led by the power-hungry warlord Khazar, was gathering strength. They didn't believe in the prophecy. They rejected the idea of a hybrid heir leading them back to glory. They had no faith in Jack or his bloodline, and they would do whatever it took to see him fail. "They do not understand the importance of what is happening," Zelora said one evening, her voice tinged with sorrow. "They are blinded by their desire for power, unwilling to see the truth. But you must be ready, Jack. They will come for you. They will not rest until they have destroyed us." Jack nodded, but deep down, he was still unsure of his own abilities. He hadn't asked for this. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a king. He was just a regular guy who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the Queen's words kept echoing in his mind. "You are the heir." He couldn't deny that the connection he felt with her, something deep, primal, was real. But could he truly live up to the expectations of an entire species? As the days passed, the unease in Jack's heart grew. He was beginning to feel the pressure of his new role, and the burden weighed heavily on him. He spent long hours practicing his abilities, trying to control the strange, otherworldly energy coursing through him. The more he trained, the more he realized that there was something inside him, something ancient and powerful that he had no control over. It terrified him. One evening, as Jack sat alone in the Queen's chamber, staring at the strange symbols etched into the walls, he felt a presence behind him. He turned quickly, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon that Zelora had given him, a small, sleek device that could channel his energy. But when he saw who it was, his hand fell to his side. It was Zelora standing in the doorway, her eyes filled with an emotion Jack couldn't place. "Jack," she said softly, "I can feel your doubts. You are afraid of what you are becoming, but you must trust in yourself. You have already done so much to help us. The powers inside you are not something to fear. They are a part of you." Jack stood up slowly, taking a deep breath. "But I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I can do this. I'm not like you. I'm not some great leader. I'm just me." Zelora stepped forward, her presence calming. "You are more than you know. You carry the legacy of both our species. The strength, the courage, and the wisdom that flows through you is ancient. You are not just a man, Jack. You are the bridge between two worlds. And it is through you that our future will be shaped." Jack looked at her, searching her eyes for any sign of doubt, but there was none, only conviction, only faith in him. "I don't feel ready," Jack said quietly. "I don't feel like I can live up to what you expect of me." Zelora smiled gently. "You are already living up to it. Every decision you make, every step you take is part of your destiny. You do not need to be perfect. You need only to trust in who you are." Her words were like a weight lifting off his chest. For the first time, Jack began to realize that this wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about fitting some image of a hero or leader. It was about doing what he could with what he had to protect those who needed him. But even as Jack began to accept his role, trouble was already on the horizon. The Queen had been keeping a close eye on the movements of Khazar's forces, and reports came in daily about the growing resistance. Khazar was a ruthless leader, and he had already begun to rally his followers. He didn't just want to overthrow Zelora, he wanted to erase her bloodline entirely. The hybrid heir was a threat to everything he stood for. "We cannot wait any longer," Zelora said one day, her voice grave. "They are coming, Jack. Khazar will stop at nothing to destroy us. We must prepare." Jack's heart raced. He had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the fear he felt at the thought of facing an army. He wasn't ready to lead a war. He wasn't ready to fight for his life, let alone the future of an entire species. But as he looked at Zelora, he saw something in her eyes, a fierce determination, a quiet strength that made him want to fight too. He wasn't alone. She would be by his side, and together they could stand against whatever came their way. "We will fight," Jack said, his voice firm though his hands trembled slightly. "I'll fight, for you, for your people." Zelora nodded, her eyes filled with pride. "You are not alone in this, Jack. I will lead by your side, and together we will awaken the strength of my people. We will show Khazar what it means to face the true heir of this world." The plan was simple but dangerous. They would travel to the heart of Zelora's people's former empire, where the remaining loyalists of her bloodline had gathered. They needed to rally the forces and unite the broken factions before it was too late. But the journey would not be easy. The path was fraught with dangers, treacherous terrain, hostile forces, and the ever-present threat of Khazar's spies. As Jack and Zelora prepared to leave, a small group of her most trusted warriors arrived, ready to assist them on their journey. They were fierce, dedicated fighters, but Jack could see the fear in their eyes. They knew what was at stake. The fate of their people rested on the shoulders of the last hope, the hybrid heir. The journey was long and arduous. As they moved through dense forests and across barren wastelands, Jack's powers continued to grow. He learned to focus the energy inside him, using it to enhance his physical strength and to protect himself from the elements. But the more he used his powers, the more he realized how much he still didn't understand about them. They were volatile, unpredictable. He couldn't control them fully, but he could feel them guiding him, pushing him forward. On the fourth day of their journey, as they crossed a narrow canyon, Jack felt a strange vibration in the air. It was a deep, humming energy that seemed to come from the earth itself. He stopped in his tracks, turning to Zelora. "They are here," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We have no time to waste. Khazar's forces are closing in." The ground beneath their feet trembled as a shadowy figure appeared on the horizon. The battle was about to begin, and Jack knew that this was just the beginning of the war that would decide the future of two worlds. The tension in the air was palpable as Jack stood at the edge of the narrow canyon, staring down at the darkening horizon. The distant hum of approaching forces filled the silence, vibrating through the ground beneath his feet. He could feel it. Something was coming, something immense, something that could change everything. He had been preparing for this moment for days, but now that it was here, he realized nothing could have truly prepared him for the battle ahead. Zelora stood by his side, her presence strong and unwavering, but Jack could sense the urgency in her eyes. She had lived through countless battles in the past, but this one was different. This was her last chance to reclaim her throne, to restore her people to their former glory. This was not just about survival, it was about something far greater, a chance for a new beginning. "Do you feel it?" Zelora asked quietly, her voice filled with a deep understanding of the gravity of the situation. "They are not just coming to defeat us. They are coming to erase everything we've ever known." Jack nodded, gripping the weapon at his side, feeling the weight of it. It was a simple tool, but it was all he had. The energy that he had learned to harness over the past few days was still unpredictable, but he trusted that it would help him when the time came. He had to trust in himself. There was no other choice. "Then we won't let them," Jack said, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at the edges of his confidence. Zelora's gaze softened as she looked at him. "I believe in you, Jack. You are our hope. But you must remember, this is not just about fighting for survival. This is about fighting for the future." The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment of silence, and Jack turned to see a group of Zelora's warriors coming towards them. They were fierce, determined, their faces hard with the knowledge of what was at stake. There were fewer of them than Jack had expected, but they were strong. They were loyal, and they were willing to fight until the end. "We've been tracking Khazar's forces," one of the warriors said, her voice steady despite the tension. "They're not far, we have to move quickly." Zelora nodded, her expression hardening with resolve. "Prepare yourselves, this is our moment. We must show Khazar and his followers that the throne is not his to claim." Jack could feel the weight of her words as they set off, moving quickly through the rugged terrain. The path ahead was dangerous, with sharp rocks and cliffs that seemed to come out of nowhere, but the warriors knew their way. Jack stayed close to Zellora, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. He had trained for this moment, but nothing could prepare him for the raw violence of battle. The coming fight wasn't just about survival, it was about the future of an entire species. As they neared the battlefield, the sound of marching grew louder, and Jack could feel the energy of the approaching army like a storm on the horizon. They had no time left. They had to make their stand now. The first wave of Khazar's forces appeared over the ridge, their silhouettes dark against the fading light of the sky. They were too many for Jack to count. Khazar's soldiers were a mix of alien species, all fierce and trained for war. They were here to end what had been started long ago, to eliminate the hybrid heir and destroy the Queen's bloodline once and for all. Zellora raised her hand, signaling the warriors to stop. She turned to Jack, her expression intense. "This is it," she said. "Remember what you are fighting for." Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was about to come. He had no illusions about the odds. They were outnumbered. The battle would be brutal, but he couldn't back down. He couldn't let everything slip away. He had to fight for Zellora, for the future of her people, and for himself. "Let's do this," Jack said, his voice steady now, filled with determination. The first arrow flew through the air, and the battle began. The sound of clashing weapons and shouts of anger filled the air as the warriors engaged Khazar's forces. Jack was thrown into the chaos, his senses overwhelmed by the chaos of battle. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, the adrenaline coursing through him as he fought side by side with Zellora's warriors. His weapon, a sleek energy blade, hummed with power in his hand, but it felt like a toy compared to the immense forces they were facing. Jack moved quickly, using the energy he had learned to control. His powers flared to life as he focused on the enemies in front of him. The energy surged through him, and for a moment, everything seemed to slow down. He raised his hand, and the ground beneath Khazar's soldiers shifted. The rocks around them rose into the air, spinning like jagged blades, throwing the enemy off balance. It was a small victory, but it was enough to push back the first wave. Zellora fought beside him, her strength unmatched. She was a force of nature, cutting through the enemy ranks with precise strikes. Her warriors followed her lead, their movements synchronized and fluid. But even with their skill and determination, the battle was far from over. Khazar's forces were relentless, and for every enemy they brought down, 2 more seemed to take their place. Jack could feel the power building within him, his abilities growing stronger with each passing moment. But he was also starting to feel the strain. Using the energy took its toll, and he could feel his body growing tired, his mind stretched thin from the effort. He had to stay focused. He had to keep pushing forward. Through the chaos, Jack caught sight of a figure moving through the battlefield. It was Khazar himself, his massive form cutting a path through the warriors with ease. The warlord's eyes glowed with an unnatural light, his face twisted in fury as he made his way toward Zellora. Jack's heart raced as he saw the confrontation coming. He had to act. He pushed himself forward, his energy surging as he used his powers to propel himself through the battlefield. He reached Zellora just as Khazar lunged at her, his weapon raised to strike. Jack's hand shot out, and with a burst of energy, he slammed Khazar back, sending him crashing to the ground. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent as the 2 opponents faced each other. Khazar's eyes burned with fury, but Jack stood tall, his body radiating power. He was no longer just a technician. He was the heir to a broken empire, a force to be reckoned with. "You cannot defeat me," Khazar spat, rising to his feet. "You are nothing." Jack's voice was steady, but there was an undeniable strength behind it. "I'm everything you fear." With that, Jack rushed forward, his energy crackling around him like a storm. He fought with everything he had, pushing his powers to their limits. The battle between them was fierce, a clash of strength and will. But in the end, it was Jack who prevailed. With one final surge of energy, he struck Khazar down, his forces collapsing around him. The battlefield fell silent, and Jack stood victorious, panting heavily as the last of Khazar's forces retreated. The warlord lay defeated at his feet, but the cost had been high. Many of Zellora's warriors had fallen, and the damage to the land was devastating, but they had won. The future of her people was secured. Zellora stood beside him, her expression filled with both pride and sadness. "We did it," she said softly, "but it's not over. There is much work to be done." Jack nodded, feeling a deep sense of exhaustion wash over him. But he also felt something else, something he hadn't felt before. He felt like he had finally found his place in this strange, alien world. He had fought for something greater than himself, and in doing so, he had become something greater. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Jack knew that he was ready to face whatever came next. Together, Jack and Zellora stood side by side, watching as the remnants of the battlefield faded into the distance. The journey ahead would be long, but they would face it together, and with the strength of their people behind them, nothing could stop them now.